Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. So, last week in the Atomic Shop, we got the Slocum Fatstack prefab dropping, and this thing turns out to be a pretty cool little prefab, so I thought we'd do a build with it. Okay, so yeah, this is a pretty cool little prefab. I say little, it's actually a decent size, but not ridiculous, which is quite cool. Bit of a challenge to figure out what to do with this, because it looks very, very lonely if you're not careful on its own. The obvious thing to do is go with the diner vibe and build up from there as a place that the players stumbled upon. But yeah, it's come out quite well with a few little additions around the outside and a lot of decoration in this one rather than building, so we'll focus on a tour rather than the actual build. But let's have a look at where we are. Zooming in on the map. Here is the Fatstack camp. There's Portside Pub in Morgantown and Mama Dolce's. So we're just on the south-western side of Morgantown, really. There's a couple of roads here that kind of meet just below the pub. We're on this one at the top, not the north-south one. Oh, we're kind of on the junction where those two roads meet, really. But the marker's a little further south than the camp actually is. Vault 76 over there in the lighthouse if you want a little more context. So yeah, done Morgantown builds before. This one is a different side, sort of a quarter of the way around the town, really. And you see people building on this side occasionally, but I haven't yet. And this is quite a cool spot, so I thought, why not? There we go. The Slocum's Fatstack. Yeah, it's pretty cool. This looks kind of like it's a 3-tier prefab. It's not. It's just 2 stories. The upper story is basically there for decoration, which is fine. There's plenty of space in it. So you can sort of see the main prefab in the middle there, and on its own, that definitely does stick out. I thought about trying to squeeze a car park on there and use some foundations for that, because that kind of makes sense. But getting them to clip into the base so they weren't on their own was problematic. So I decided we'd put a few extra bits around to dress it up. The billboard went well there along the shipping container. And then on the left I thought we'd add a little structure of some kind. So I went for a small, really small house that I basically figure is going to be the home for my camp ally, because I wanted to live myself in the main prefab. So that's basically an ally home on the side there. And it's a variation on stuff I've done before, quite tiny, and it works quite nicely. And obviously, moving out from it, we've added loads of bits and pieces to dress it up. We've got the crops down here. Put the scarecrow out to hopefully avoid them getting shot up too much. Mixed success so far. This place does get attacked a little bit. One of the drawbacks is the Portside Pub is a spawn point for Scorched, and they do tend to wander over a bit, so you kind of have to deal with that. But it's cool nonetheless. The broken down old car there, I really do like placing this outside of sort of the edge of camps and beside structures and stuff for extra texture and sort of detailing. It sort of brings that post-apocalyptic built around the stuff that's here. Stuff's been dragged back vibe quite well. So this little house for my ally here is basically a 2 foundation job, sort of in a straight line. And then with the walls built up on that, you can see, kept it fairly simple. I did put a porch on the front there, just over the doorway, just to make the shape a little bit more interesting and give it a little bit more room, because this is very compact. Got our collectron and our shower around here. There's my shelter entrance down at the bottom, and the CD shed, which does pop up on the Atomic Shop. Crikey, that was a lot of alliteration. Quite regularly. It's pretty cool, this thing. It's small, but it works quite well. Unfortunately, where it is a spawn point for camp attacks for some weird reason, so I frequently have to open the door and deal with things. So actually locking this thing to keep enemies out and prevent them shooting it didn't really work at all, as you can see by the remains here. One thing that is very cool about this, other than the fact I've added a few little bits of extra decoration in here, is that if you use a fusion generator like this, you can have it either way round, and at the top, the connector on it sticks up from the top of the generator, and it will poke through the sloped roof at the back of it. Kind of see it there. And it will just stick out the top high enough for you to connect a wire to it. And you do it either way around, depending on which side of the building you want the connector on. It's quite handy for that. It works really well as a generator shack, this thing. And countless other things. You can basically fit a whole camp in there if you really try. You've really got to work at it, though. So we're going to tuck through the little gap here, and most of these gaps, though cosy, you can actually get through, as you can see. Got our toilet facilities there. A couple of stash boxes so you can climb up to it. Those do actually work as steps. Quite a good combination, that particular pair. There's our little porch area for Leo Petrov, is the ally I've got here to hang out, and anybody else. You can sort of see here where the prefab on the left there overhangs a bit. I wanted to highlight that because it limits how close you can build to it. Some of the structures get underneath that, and then the collision box gets a bit iffy, so with foundations and with the walls and stuff, and that porch that we're going to have a quick look at in a moment, it did become a bit of a problem to get it any closer than it is, but it's close enough, so it works. Whole bundle of decoration out here. We'll have a look at my ally's house before we go into the main prefab. You see I've added little bits of detailing and stuff just to look like stuff's a bit dragged back, make it a bit more interesting. That metal tub planter, along with a number of other planters actually, are currently impossible to put crops in, which is very annoying. So to dress it up, I basically used the merge glitch and just merged some pot plants in there to just make it look like it was occupied. Got the little wood stack there, which I believe is from the current season, just down at the bottom there. One other thing about that metal planter, by the way, is that because it's got a flat bottom and the ground here is not flat, it kind of floats at this back edge, so I put the brambles in and then just dropped the planter on the top of it to conceal that. Worked quite well, as it turns out. We've got a little seating area out here, put the Nuka-Cola rug on, which is probably not ideal in wet weather, but hey. Just to dress it up, give that Nuka-Cola vibe for Leo. I do like having that log light out here, like Christmas log light. Just because it really does, it gives a nice like warming tone and it looks quite cool hanging from the porch. So, got a few fireflies around as well. We'll have a look at Leo's house. So, nice wooden wallpaper on the sides here with the purple stuff at either end. A couple of rugs down on the floor that are kind of clipping together a little bit to put some carpet down because I wasn't happy with the alternatives. Got some bits and pieces on the wall. Unfortunately, there was a couple of those triangle pieces that for some reason I couldn't get wallpaper on at all. I don't know why, it's just been temperamental. I might need to try again at some point, but yeah, that was being a bit annoying. So the desk here on the left is Leo's ally station, which is why it's so detailedly decorated. We'll be able to improve on our sort of desktop decoration by the end of the season, but that comes pre-decorated. There's a whole bunch of Nuka-Cola stuff for him. I haven't got everything unlocked yet from Nuka World on Tour, as got to get those events going, but we've got a few bits and pieces. It makes for a nice, cosy home for Leo here. We've got a little cooking station in there. The walls at either end here, so you can see in the front here, are two half walls, one on top of the other, so I could have a small window sort of higher up the wall, so that I could get the stuff underneath it nicely, the appliances. And I actually pulled those walls out, put the cooking station in, and used the flamethrower on it to destroy the cooking station, and then put the walls back, which allowed me to get the thing nice and close like that, and have the pipes on the outside, which are then hidden by the junk fence on the outside as well. So there we go, Leo's little house. That actually works quite well as a little player home. You're not going to be able to cram all of your workbenches into that space, but it does work quite nicely. Well, you probably could cram them all in, actually, but you wouldn't have any room for a bed and stuff like that, so yeah. But as a nice little sort of part of a camp, that is a nice little structure to use. A few of the new bits and pieces on the outside here as well, that Curios sign there from the current season. Let's head on inside. That door is the one that comes with this new prefab, and it seems it'll snap onto just about anything, which is cool, if you want that glass door. So, here we go, ground floor of the prefab. Now, what I had in mind here was that it's a diner. It's kind of hard to avoid that. It's a donut shop come coffee shop diner thing. So I wanted to go with the idea that most of the furniture had been ripped out of the place, but some of it was still left. So I've got a few of the seating areas in. So we've got one there under the stairs. And over on the middle here, you've also got the counters that were here as well. The gap in this, you can sort of see there, is exactly the right size to fit one of the vendors in. I measured it out and everything. The idea was that the vendor was there, it got ripped out before the player got here, and the counter was left in. And to access behind it, you kind of went around the right-hand edge here, which I ended up closing up just for sort of tidiness sake, but still, that was the theory. And the player has come in and dragged back loads and loads of junk and stuff, and using this lower level as the primary crafting space. So we've got most of the workbenches, there's actually only one missing, that fit in here quite nicely. We've got a nice, thoroughly detailedly decorated little crafting space. Squeeze the chemistry bench in here. It kind of clips a little bit onto the shelving of the this left-hand end of the counter. So I did have to get the flamethrower out and destroy that in order to drop the workbench in there and then repair it so that it all sits nice and snug. But everything else was just a little bit of patience and careful positioning, and I was able to get it nice and snug in there. Actually, thinking about it, I might have had to flamethrower the counter on this side as well to get the cooking station tucked in the corner, but this one's the player's cooking station, so there we go. We've got the coffee machine at the back, well worth picking up. There's a different skinned version of this in the Atomic Shop at the moment as part of the Fatstack bundle. Didn't pick that bundle up, just picked up the prefab itself because I didn't really want most of the other stuff in the bundle, to be honest. It was variations on stuff I already had and I only use on occasion anyway, so yeah. Decided to just pick up the prefab, but yeah, there's some good stuff in there and stuff on the Atomic Shop at the moment that's worth having a look at if you're a regular camp builder. The coffee you get out of that coffee machine, by the way, gives you a boost to your action points, so action point regen, which is really handy. So that window there with the pier sign in it is the only broken window in the prefab as far as I'm aware, so if you do want to run a wire through a window, that's how you do it there, as an FYI. Few little bits of extra decoration around. Got the Nuka-Cola machine in there. I figure the player has dragged back and somehow managed to force through the door. My little punch card machine as well. This one's on a bit of a weird angle, mostly because if it's not, it kind of blocks the stairs a little bit. Not completely, but just enough to be annoying. So I put it on a little bit of an angle there. Really tight kind of curving staircase, which is cool. Really steep staircase, this one, but it works nicely, as you can see. Comes up to the first floor, which is my living space. And yet more detail. Really like how this has come out. There's a few bits in here I want to really kind of have a close look at because there's some really cool ideas that I'm quite pleased with. So we'll swing back around. Here is the owl in a cage, which I believe is a Fallout First reward at the moment. It's a little bit too far back and clipping into the wall there, but it makes it easy to get past. The level of detail on the owl in particular, this barn owl, is absolutely amazing. It looks so good, that. Hats off to the team who worked on that, because it's spot on. Got a little Vault-Tec corner here with bobbleheads and stuff. That went together quite nicely. Tinker's Bench I forgot to put in downstairs, and by the time I remembered I didn't have space. But putting it up here means I've got a reason to come upstairs a bit more often when I need ammo, so that's not such a bad thing. Little decorated up shelf there that I use the merge glitch for just to dress it up. I need a little bit more practice because the backside of that is not as well decorated as the front, but I figure if stuff's been pushed onto the shelf from the front, maybe it's just not been pushed back as far as it should have been. You know, stuff's been dropped there by the person using the bench. That's the head canon for why it's not so much stuff at the back. Loads of little bits of extra decoration and stuff up here. Got the fortune teller machine. Really happy to have squeezed this pool table in. Really need to put that in early if you want to use it, because the collision box for it and the space it needs is even bigger than the rug around it. So, yeah, the earlier you put it in, the more likely you are to be able to work with it, because it's a bit finicky, that thing, just because it's sheer size. We're going to completely ignore the question of how the player managed to get it up the stairs, but, you know, headcanon, fudging, something like that. It's all good. So, a little seating area here, so you can sit, listen to the radio and read a magazine, that sort of stuff if you want. It's the living space, so you need a place to chill. I figure you're going to have to sit and eat downstairs if you want to, unless you want to have your kind of TV dinner thing. Gotta have a few plushies on the stash box. Normally I'd use a different stash box there, but I'm still kind of obsessed with the fact I picked up that large nuclear winter one from A Colossal Problem a little while back, so I've been wanting that forever, so I've been using it. A little dressing space there behind the screen. And we'll come around to the other side of the bed. So yeah, when you're decorating the walls in here, the windows do make it a bit iffy. The space above them is a bit of a tight fit for some things. You need to kind of work around that with the wall decoration, but I think it's come out okay. I love this idea that I had, by the way. So to do this, we just put the three displays there, the weapon racks, on the wall, actually over the top of a window, but that works fine. Then I came out of the build menu and put the weapons on display, which are a bit too small for the size of the racks, which is a bit unfortunate, but otherwise, put those on and then put the cage back on afterwards, which are the window bars that came up around last Halloween, I believe. So they're Atomic Shop items, so keep an eye out for them if you do want them. But they're pretty cool. There's this one, and there's a more square version of it, which has a bit more height to it. I felt the broader one worked better for this. Really finicky to get that on there, but quite a cool little concept, I thought. Lighting-wise, I'm not going to do a nighttime tour on this one, but basically up here, it's just the lamps that you can see around that are illuminating this upstairs area. So you've got the one stood over there and the lantern on the table. Obviously, the Tinker's Bench puts out a bit of light as well. And then there's a few bits on the shelf there and a couple of others around as well. So the lighting's a bit more subdued in here. I did put a couple of extras around, like you see that white one at the back by the stairs there, just to throw out a bit more light. But I wanted it to be a little bit more subdued and homely feeling. But as we head back downstairs again, towards our crafting space, this is much more brightly illuminated. There's a few little sources of light around, but the primary lighting comes from the ceiling light there, and also that kind of old possum sign at the back puts out a startlingly large amount of light, to be honest. So yeah, it's quite well illuminated down here, even in the evening. Although obviously not as bright as it is in the day. Yeah, really like this. Really gone crazy on the decoration for this. If you're wondering about budgets, by the way, I've basically used all of it. There's a couple of turrets there that you could take out if you wanted to add extra decoration. They're not actually doing a lot at the moment. They're occasionally useful, but not that often, as is always the case. And there's the crops as well that you can have more or less of if you wanted to free up some decoration, because those are the things that really eat up the most budget by themselves. So. But yeah, I really went to town on the decoration and put as much stuff in here as I really could, just to make it look as detailed as lived in, like there's as much crap has been dragged back from the wasteland as possible, and I think it came out rather well. And, you know, as I said at the start, the big thing with this thing is making sure that the Fatstack prefab doesn't look too lonely, which it can do initially when you drop it in. If you pick the thing up and have a go with it, you'll see instantly what I'm talking about. But add bits around the outside to make it look like there's more environment coming closer to the object, and you'll have a really cool basis for a design, which was what I went for here, and I'm really happy with how it came out. So, do hope you folks enjoyed this one. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate it. Social media links, merch store, channel memberships, all that good stuff down below the video if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. I humongously appreciate it. Massive thank you there. And if you get a chance, join us for live streams as well. You get to have a look around this place on stream, hopefully Tuesday and Thursday. And we are playing Red Dead Redemption 2 as well, which has been really good fun. So do join us for that. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.